Hi, and welcome to today's episode of Fearless Conversations. My name is Dawn Tao. This is Jade Lotsu and Rochelle Ragusi. So this next topic I want to discuss, how to let yourself not feel intimidated by other women in your tribe or your circle, or even outside of your circle, when you're surrounded by women who have strengths in areas you don't. What do you do with feelings of inferiority in comparison with other women? And I love this topic because I think it's so easy to look at other people and see the strengths that they have, and then I think what we do with talents and abilities is we put them on a weighted scale, and we sometimes not overvalue, but we undervalue what we bring to the table, and we place more weight on what somebody else brings to the table. And there's just this, because our own talents and abilities in some ways can come natural to us, so we don't even count those as an ability. When I was growing up, I remember the one thing I remember being told I was good at was being a good listener. And I remember thinking, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do with that. Because I would look at my other friends and I felt like I could place a label and I could say, well, she's the intelligent one. She's the artistic one. She's the one that can sing. Everybody had some sort of meaningful gift. And then when I looked at my own life, I was like, okay, I'm a good listener. This just does not feel like it weighs out on the scale in any sort of fair way. I was like, I used to think about gifts and talents God just sprinkling things from the sky. I'm like, did you miss me? But the truth is, I learned throughout the years that listening is a great skill. And of course, I discovered other talents and abilities that I have. But I think especially when it comes to comparison with other women, we can see the strengths that they have in their areas. And it's easy to then compare our gifts to theirs and feel like, well, she brings more value because that gift is more obvious for her. It's something that's more out in the open. What I have is just more inward, and it doesn't reflect the same way that this person's gift reflects. But one thing that I just love to talk about is that we all belong at the table. It doesn't work unless everybody's gifts come. And you have that beautiful story that you shared about everyone shares their voice. What is it? It was a Dr. Seuss thing. The Horton Hears a Who.
Oh yeah.
Everybody sings.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's all needed to create this beautiful picture of life and humanity, is that everybody's gifts are needed and valued, and God in his great infinite wisdom knows how to place us in the exact right spaces to really reflect the gifts that he's given us in our life. So I think the important thing to remember, especially if you're surrounded with high achieving women, which I look at you two and other people that we're all connected with, Marie, Jody, Yogi, these high achieving women, I think how you can survive in that space is you choose to be inspired by other people's gifts versus intimidated by their gifts. Intimidation is just going to keep you suppressed and scared and feeling like you're not enough, and your inner critic can come out to play. But if you choose to be inspired by somebody else's gift, that's a whole other thing, because then you move into this space of, I'm going to celebrate you, I honor you, I'm for you, and I'm not going to allow insecurity to rule the day, because I know there's so much more beauty on the other side of celebrating what everybody brings to the table versus just being intimidated by it. So I'm curious on what your ladies' thoughts are on that.
I do. I agree with that. I just kind of stopped. I used to compare myself to other people and just never feel like I was enough. And I have a naturally shy personality in general, and especially in bigger crowds. And so all growing up in school until I got to high school, and I kind of picked this rowdy bunch to hang out with, and I would put myself out there constantly. You're so afraid of what other people are going to think of you. And so I think most people that are shy are inside their head, and they're withdrawn, and they're so afraid of just putting themselves out there because of what other people might think. And I think just over time, when you just kind of, again, maybe kind of like an onion, you just kind of start peeling some of that back. And that's not to say that I have confidence in every area of my life, or that I'm fully confident to the extent that maybe I should be. But I think even over time, when you say being inspired by other people, acknowledge other people's giftings, and be encouraging to them. Mm-hmm. And I think the more you do that, other people are just waiting to hear that. And so then they'll say, well, you have this. And I've had people that have just reached out to me privately and have said things to me that I felt were not coming across the way that I wanted them to. And then to have that confirmation. So I think too, just giving other people the confirmation and building them up is huge, because then their confidence grows in what they're doing. And I think just over time, I guess we're all kind of in our 30s, and so we've gotten past some of the angst of the teenage years and the 20s and stuff, and you kind of really start to see who you are as a person. I felt like in my 30s I've been doing that more than I ever have before. And you just kind of, I don't know, if I could just say, just don't care what other people have or don't have in the sense of how it might make you look, or just be who you are.
Yeah.
And operate in, again, how many times have I said it? I'm just going to operate in what I've been given.
Mm-hmm.
I'm accountable to what I've been given. And I have sometimes an awkward personality, and I used to just be afraid of that. And now I'm just like, well, I feel like I make a lot of people laugh when I'm being weird. And I think that helps calm them, and that helps them to find their confidence. And so I've just come to a place where I'm more accepting of who I am now than what I've ever been. And I think that comes over time, and the more you pursue it.
Yeah. And I think it's important to glean from people, learn from people, like to notice different leadership styles. If the leadership is controlling, that's different than empowered. So, or if you're just a leader and you're attracting people because you got that servant heart, you're not just, I think of the difference of, are you inspired or intimidating, or intimidated or inspired? I think this can come from different ways in the sense of leadership style, but also you as a, who's influencing your life, like looking around. And if you're inspired by someone, I would say a lot of times that they're giving off the vibe like it's empowering. They're not just like, this is my spot and it's a positional thing. I think of it as it's literally an internal work. It's something that we carry. Really, when you take ownership and you understand that, there's something that happens, I think, where it's like you're not intimidated by other people's success. Like you're inspired, and I think it's a whole nother perspective. And it comes with really finding your identity, like, and who you are before God. If you're struggling with that, I would encourage you to connect and really look around, like, who are the people you are gleaning from? Glean from people that are secure in who they are. They're not leading in a controlling way. They're literally, or if they're saying they're a leader, but if no one's following them, then they're not really a leader. But there are some leaders that do have followers, but it could be controlling and manipulation. So I think it's important, especially if someone still is figuring out, you may be in that place, your purpose is, but it's really important who you are inspired. Like, I hope you're being inspired and not intimidated.
Yeah,
and I think there's a vibe in that.
Yeah.
I like how you say that too, because I think that's important too, in order to not be intimidated by others. That I hope that I'm never putting off that I want anybody to be intimidated by me or where I'm at in life. I hope that I'm only inspiring people. And so I think if you can also take that approach where I'm just going to live to inspire rather than to intimidate, you start kind of viewing things a little bit differently. And some, you kind of see the silliness and some of the intimidation, and you think, well, I'm not going to do that. That's silly to me. And then when you kind of start to catch yourself falling into that, well, I feel intimidated. Oh, that's silly.
And I think that's where you can be more authentic. And that's what people really want. They don't want people to act like they have it all together, because everybody is in process and has something they're struggling with, And so being authentic, and I think you can be authentic when you can fully own that and you're just humble before God, because otherwise, if it's an image you're trying to uphold, like you're gonna, or a title you're protecting, or something you feel like, it's gonna give off a different vibe. And I think in this time that it's just important for us to look around and really see, because what do we want to become? Because we're going to become like those we're really gleaning from.
Yeah. It makes me think too of, I think sometimes when you are connected with a group of women, and certain ones of us in different seasons are really going to be operating like full on out there in the gifts and callings that God's placed in our life. Sometimes if you find yourself in a shadow season or a season of isolation where you don't feel, you're really struggling with purpose, you're not walking it out in the way that you thought that you would at that time, it's easy to let yourself feel discouraged that the light is shining on someone else, and you're wondering, when is my season, God? When are you going to hear and see where I'm at? Is just knowing that the light that's shining on someone else doesn't diminish the light that God's shining on you. Good. And it reminds me too of a lot of times Christine Kane will talk about how, when people look at her, they just, they think A21 campaign and all the things that she's done, and they she talked about when she first came out with A21 campaign and it started to really gain traction and exposure. People thought she was this overnight success, and she's like, wait. You don't know, like, how many years I spent in the church, like, going down gravel roads, picking up kids for youth group, and scrubbing the bathroom floor of our church, and just all these things that she did,
building
like
that servant heart.
Yeah, the servant's heart, and what you said, like humble beginnings, and she spent so many years doing that. But what we see is the end of the road success, and I think especially when we look at other women, that's what we see too. We see maybe we walk in on a chapter where they're just like shining and they're just full on operating in whatever God has placed in their life, but we don't always necessarily see the struggle that came. And we might know it logically. Oh yeah, we know that somebody isn't viral. There's probably some work that led to that. But sometimes it's easy to just let your mindset focus on the success and not really focus on the fact that, yeah, there was probably a lot that they went through to get to that point. And I think, especially with social media, social media is a highlight reel, and you see, we see curated moments, but it's just acknowledging that if you could, I tell this to the VHS students, if you could see somebody's photo on Instagram, unfiltered, lens pulled back, uncropped, you would see that they have dirty laundry in the background too. They have, for these students, I say, you would see probably siblings fighting in the background, mom and dad probably fighting to the light. Like, you don't see that because what people put out is a curated, filtered version, and that's fine because maybe that's what you're comfortable sharing. I'm not knocking that, but it's just acknowledging that, especially with social media, what you're looking at is a curated version of somebody's life. And I think back in the day when we didn't have social media, maybe people dealt with comparison in other ways, but I think now with social media at our fingertips, and so much about other people's lives so quickly and easily, it's easy to let yourself kind of get into this mode of comparison. But if we can acknowledge that, not everyone's living a viral moment, even if that's the chapter you've walked in on.
And I would say, even not to shame, but to empower, is the fact that if you look at someone and feels like it takes away from you, it's time to do some heart work for your sake, because that's like an orphan mentality, and that's the beauty of God. Like, he wants us, like, there's enough for each of us. Like, you're shining, it doesn't diminish. It doesn't mean that I can't fully, like, it's taken away what I could possibly be becoming, all that the purposes he wants to unfold. In fact, if I can honor you, not only can I glean from you, and we can see that there's a teamwork, and there's a beautiful thing of showing up with our giftings and kind of being a part of something, and see how, like, a team, synergy is you're just better together than apart. And there is a beauty in that. And I think that's a human desire, like, that we belong and we find teams. And I think that, that's a beautiful thing. And I like to see more of that. And I think that's what a lot of hearts long for. But I think as we learn how to do that, to do our heart work within ourselves, that we're going to find ourselves fitting like puzzle pieces where we need to be.
So good.
Yeah.